She said it through clenched teeth, like a whip laced with shame. And in that moment, I felt smaller than I had in 77 years of life, smaller than when I lost my husband, smaller than when I buried my brother, smaller than when I was told I might be dying. My name is Marlene Godfrey. I used to be someone's wife, someone's sister, someone's nurse. And now, according to my only daughter, I am just someone selfish. The day began like most Thursdays. My knees ached before my eyes opened, my fingers stiff as I reached for the orange bottle on the nightstand. I live alone in a small apartment 2 blocks from St. Joseph's Clinic. The walls are thin, and sometimes I listen to my neighbor's television murmuring late into the night. I've grown used to silence, to solitude, not entirely by choice, but by habit, the way most things become after long enough. At 9:05 a.m., I poured my cereal. At 9:08, the phone rang. "Mama, can you take Noah today? I got called in last minute, and James can't get off." "No, hello. No, how are you? Just can you?" I held the spoon halfway to my mouth. "I have a doctor's appointment this morning, sweetheart. With Dr. Keller, the cardiologist." A pause, then a long exhale, sharp and rehearsed. "Mama, it's always something with you lately. I mean, seriously? An hour or two. It's not like you're going in for surgery." "No," I said softly. "But this appointment matters. I've waited 3 months to get in." Her voice raised. "So that's more important than helping with your grandson?" That's when she said it. The word. Selfish. It hung in the air, burning more than it should have. I'd heard worse in my life. I'd heard ungrateful, stubborn, even cold. But coming from your own blood, your daughter, that word lands differently. I didn't argue. I simply told her I was sorry and hung up the phone. The cereal turned soggy in the bowl. I pushed it away. By 10:30, I was at the clinic. The air smelled like antiseptic and disappointment. Dr. Keller was 30 minutes late, as always. I sat in the waiting room beside a man with oxygen tubes and a woman who coughed into her sleeve. I watched the clock. I thought about Noah. He was only 4. He liked dinosaurs and peanut butter crackers and the color green. I loved that boy. God knows I did. But I had my own battles to fight, my own storm brewing beneath my skin. When Dr. Keller finally saw me, he didn't smile like he used to. He looked at my chart. He cleared his throat. "Your heart function's down 10% since last year, Marlene." I nodded. "I can feel it. We need to discuss options." I left with a folder and more questions than answers. As I waited at the bus stop, the rain started, not heavy, but enough to chill the bones. I didn't bring an umbrella. I didn't expect to need one. That's when I saw her. Angela, my daughter, across the street, buckling Noah into the back of her car. She must have left work early. Or maybe James got off after all. She hadn't called to tell me. I watched them from a distance. She didn't see me. She looked tired, angry, not at me, maybe just at life. I recognized that face. I'd worn it myself many years ago. I thought about waving, about crossing the street, about saying, "I'm sorry" again. But I didn't. Instead, I sat down on the cold bench and clutched the folder tighter. Because I was tired too. And for once, I needed to let that be enough. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of the rain, not because of the pills. Because of her voice still echoing in my ears. Selfish. I remembered the first time I held her. Angela was born after 3 miscarriages. A tiny, red-faced miracle. I swore I'd protect her forever. I remembered staying up through nights of fevers and skin knees, piano recitals, and teenage heartbreak. I remembered helping her through college, co-signing her loans, paying for her wedding dress when her fiancé lost his job. I remembered the night she gave birth to Noah, and I sat in that hospital room, holding her hand while she screamed. Had I changed? Or had she? The next morning, I didn't call her. I went about my day slowly. Laundry, dishes, watering my dying geraniums. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. It was her. Angela stood there, hair in a loose bun, mascara smudged. Noah was by her side, hugging a plastic triceratops. "Hi," she said. I nodded. "Hi." She looked down at the floor, then back at me. "I'm sorry. I waited. For what I said yesterday," she added, quieter. "You're not selfish, Mama. I was just overwhelmed. I wanted to reach out and hug her. I wanted to tell her I forgave her, and I would. But not yet. First, I needed her to understand. You know I love that boy," I said. She nodded. "And I love you." Tears welled in her eyes. "But I'm still a person," I added. "Not just a grandmother. Not just your mother. A woman. A woman who is getting older and sicker and maybe scared. Angela bit her lip. I'm not asking you to take care of me, I said. Not yet. But I can't be the safety net every time life gets hard. My rope's fraying too. She stepped forward and hugged me tight. Noah wrapped his little arms around my legs. I understand, she whispered. I really do. I believed her. At least for now. But life rarely changes overnight. One apology doesn't erase years of expectation. The weeks that followed tested everything between us. Sometimes she called and asked for help, and I said yes. Sometimes I said no, and she didn't always like it. But slowly, we started talking more. Not about babysitting. Not about favors. About us. About her childhood and mine. About the things we never said out loud. About my fears. Her regrets. My heart. We started seeing each other as more than roles: mother, daughter, grandmother. We started seeing each other as women. And that changed everything. In early March, I started cardiac rehab. 3 days a week, I rode the bus to St. Joseph's and walked laps in a room full of beeping machines and too much fluorescent lighting. Most of the others were older than me, but not by much. A man named Harold flirted with the nurses every Tuesday. A woman named Dottie crocheted between treadmill sessions. We were all somewhere between diagnosis and denial, suspended in that space where fear becomes routine. One afternoon, after a particularly exhausting session, I got off the bus to find Angela waiting on the bench outside my building. She had coffee, one for me, one for her, and a scarf I'd knitted for her years ago wrapped loosely around her neck. I was in the neighborhood, she said. It was a lie, but a kind one. We sat on the bench. It was too cold for comfort, but neither of us moved. She handed me the coffee. Do you remember when I got sick in 9th grade? She asked. I did. Scarlet fever. High fever. 3 hospital nights. I slept in the chair beside her, prayed into my sleeves, made bargains with God I would later forget. I remember, I said. You never left my side. You were my baby. Angela looked down at her hands. I never thought about how hard that must have been for you. Back then. I took a sip of coffee. I didn't either. I just did it. She looked at me, tears building in her eyes. I don't want to treat you like you don't have a life anymore, she said. I don't want to just use you. I let the silence stretch between us like thread, fragile, but connecting us just the same. You never used me, I said. You just forgot that I needed care too. Later that week, Angela invited me to dinner. Not to watch Noah, not to help cook, not to be an extra pair of hands, just to sit, just to be there. I dressed up, light makeup, my favorite necklace, a scarf I hadn't worn in years. I wanted to feel like more than a mother, more than a patient. I wanted to feel like me. Dinner was chicken and rice, nothing fancy. But the table was set properly, and Noah had made a paper heart with my name on it. I cried when I saw it. They didn't laugh at me. After dinner, Angela brought out a photo album, the old kind, with yellowing pages and corners held by aging tape. We looked through pictures I hadn't seen in years. Angela's first steps, my husband holding her in the hospital, me, young and tired and proud. There were photos of my own mother, too. She had died before Angela was 10. I don't think my daughter remembers her well, but I do. My mother was stern and soft all at once. She never said, I love you easily, but she showed it in the food she cooked, the way she fixed a loose button, the money she tucked into my coat pocket when things were tight. I miss her, I said. Angela leaned her head on my shoulder. I wish I'd known her better. She was a lot like me, I smiled. Too proud sometimes. But she meant well. Angela looked at me. I think that's how Noah will see you one day. Strong. Loving. Maybe a little too proud. I laughed. It felt good. Then I said something I hadn't said in a long time. I'm scared. Angela reached for my hand. I know. The next cardiology appointment confirmed what I had suspected. The decline was slow but steady. Dr. Keller mentioned a defibrillator implant as a future option. He mentioned palliative care, not as a recommendation, but as a term I should be familiar with. It wasn't a death sentence, but it was a sentence, one I would carry for however long I could. That night, I wrote my will. It was a quiet act. No ceremony, no drama. Just me at the kitchen table, a pen, and a few pages of pre-printed legal forms I'd gotten from the pharmacy. I left everything to Angela and Noah, but I added a letter. One I didn't seal, didn't hide. Just a note, written in my shaky cursive. Angela, please remember that I was a woman before I was your mother. I had dreams, fears, desires. I gave up a lot gladly to raise you. But I never stopped being me. When the time comes, don't mourn the parts of me you lost too late. Celebrate the ones we rediscovered together. You gave me a second chance to be seen. Love always. Mom. Spring crept in gently that year. Cherry blossoms bloomed early along 7th Avenue, and Noah took to calling them cotton candy trees. I took him to the park one Sunday while Angela and James had a rare afternoon off. Not because I was obligated, because I wanted to. We sat by the pond, feeding breadcrumbs to ducks. He asked about the clouds and the stars, the dinosaurs and the moon. Then he looked up at me, his big brown eyes blinking slowly. Grandma, are you sick? The question hit me like cold wind. I took a breath. A little, I said. But I'm okay. Are you gonna die? We don't give kids enough credit. They know things, feel things. They see the gaps between smiles and truths. Someday, I answered. But not today. He nodded solemnly, then handed me his last cracker. You can have this one. I took it, my throat too tight for words. Angela and I started meeting for lunch every other Thursday. It became our ritual. Not always deep, not always emotional. Sometimes we just sat and complained about prices, about traffic, about the weather. But there was something beautiful in the ordinariness of it. We began repairing years we'd both left unattended. One day, in a moment of surprising vulnerability, Angela said, I was so angry with you that morning. Not because you couldn't babysit, but because I hated needing you at all. That struck me. A kind of honesty most daughters don't give their mothers until it's too late. I nodded. I hated needing my mother, too, I said. And I hated when she couldn't be there, even when she had every reason not to. Angela wiped her eyes. We're not good at this, are we? No, I said. But we're getting better. The summer came with heat waves and hospital visits. I had a minor episode in late June. Dizzy, short of breath, weak. Angela was the one who found me. She'd stopped by unannounced with Noah and a tray of lasagna. I remember her voice calling my name. Her hands, trembling as she dialed 911. Her tears, real and raw. At the hospital, after they stabilized me, she sat by my bed and whispered over and over, I'm so sorry. I touched her hand. Don't be. She shook her head. I should have seen it. Should have made you rest. Should have. I cut her off gently. You were being my daughter. I was being your mother. Sometimes that means both of us pretending we're okay. That night, she stayed with me, slept in the chair, just like I had once done for her. The circle closed in the quietest way, and it held. Recovery was slow, as it often is when the body is tired and the soul even more so. I was discharged after 3 days, with new medications, new limitations, and new promises I wasn't sure I could keep. Angela offered for me to move in, just for a while, until you're stronger, she said. I declined, not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I knew how these things go. Temporary becomes permanent, and I didn't want to become a shadow in my daughter's hallway, a body her son would learn to step around like a piece of aging furniture. Still, she insisted on staying with me the first few nights home. She cleaned, she cooked, she reorganized my medicine drawer with alarming precision. She hovered, and for once, I let her. On the third night, I woke around 2 a.m. to find her sitting at my kitchen table, staring at her phone, eyes red from crying. What is it? I asked, my voice dry. She looked up, startled, then wiped her face quickly. Nothing. I'm just being dramatic. Angela, I said, sitting down slowly across from her. When you were 9, you cried over a dead squirrel in the driveway for 3 hours. Drama is in your blood. That made her laugh, but it was a wet, broken sound. I'm scared, Mama, she finally whispered. What if this is the beginning of the end? I looked at her, this woman who once fit inside my arms, who now towered with grief she didn't know how to hold. It might be, I said, honest as ever. But that doesn't mean we have to spend every day dying. We still have time. Let's use it. Angela reached for my hand and held it like it was the only thing tethering her to the earth. I'm sorry I didn't see you before, she said. Not just as my mom, but as you. I squeezed her hand back. It's okay, I told her. I didn't see you either. Not for a long time. August brought with it a kind of quiet peace. Noah turned 5. I baked a cake with too much frosting and sat with him on the porch while he described every single dinosaur in his new coloring book. I was slower now. I needed to rest more, sit more, listen more. But I still had my mind, my voice, my love. Angela began visiting even when she didn't need anything. Sometimes she brought a plant. Sometimes she brought nothing. Once, she brought a photo from her wedding one I hadn't seen in years, and we laughed over my too blue dress and her uneven eyeliner. I was so young, she murmured. So was I said. We talked often about the past, but we also talked about what came next. Not in terms of death, but life. What do you want to do, Mama? She asked me one Sunday afternoon, while we watched Noah chase butterflies in the yard. I blinked, surprised by the question. No one had asked me that in years. I want to see the ocean again, I said, the words slipping out like breath. Angela smiled. Then let's go. 2 weeks later, we drove to the coast. Just me, Angela, and Noah in the back seat, his little fingers smudging the window glass as we got closer and closer to the sea. We stayed in a small motel with peeling paint and a view of the water. I sat on the balcony each morning with my tea, watching the waves roll in like memories. Angela bought me a wide-brimmed hat. Noah buried my feet in the sand and declared me a sand mermaid. We laughed until we cried. That final night, I stood at the edge of the water, toes in the foam, the wind pulling at my sweater. Angela came to stand beside me. Do you remember bringing me here when I was a kid? She asked. I do, I said. You hated the sand in your shoes. And you always let me collect way too many shells. I smiled. You gave half of them to strangers on the boardwalk. You said everyone deserved something pretty. Angela looked at me then, eyes full of something I couldn't name. Gratitude, maybe. Or grief. Or love. You were always good, I said. Even when I forgot to tell you so. She didn't answer. She just leaned her head on my shoulder and stood with me as the tide kissed our feet, over and over again. The following month, I joined a writing group at the local senior center. It was Angela's idea. You have stories, Mama, she said. Let people hear them. So I went. Every Thursday, I wrote about growing up during the war, about losing my husband, about holding Angela the first time I ever felt truly needed. I wrote about fear, about hope, about choosing joy even when sorrow makes more sense. I wasn't the best writer in the group, but I was the most honest. And in that honesty, I found something I didn't know I was missing: connection, purpose, a reason to still show up. One afternoon in October, I came home from writing class to find Angela on my porch steps, crying. What happened? I asked, heart thudding. She looked up at me, eyes raw. My job. They're laying people off. I don't know what I'm going to do. I sat beside her, wrapped an arm around her shoulder. You'll figure it out, I said. But what if I don't? Then we do it together, I said. You're not alone, Angela. You never were. She leaned into me, and we stayed there until the sun dipped below the trees, casting long shadows across the lawn. That night, she and Noah stayed over. We played board games and ate grilled cheese sandwiches and pretended the world outside didn't exist. Sometimes pretending is the only thing that keeps us going. In November, I had another episode. Not as bad as before, but enough to scare me. Enough to remind me that time was not infinite, that each sunrise was a gift I couldn't afford to take for granted. I called Angela the next morning and asked her to come over. When she arrived, I handed her a red binder, My Life, organized into tabs, medical records, insurance, funeral preferences, letters for Noah. She didn't want to take it. I'm not ready for this, she whispered. I know, I said, but I am. She held the binder like it was made of glass. Then she sat down beside me and opened it. We went through each page together, slowly, tenderly, like two women learning how to say goodbye while still holding on. The holidays came quickly that year. We had Thanksgiving at my place. Just the three of us. Angela cooked. I made my famous apple pie. We laughed. We cried. We played charades. We danced in the kitchen to old Motown songs. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt like family. Like a woman. A mother. A grandmother. But also simply Marlene. And that was enough. Christmas came cold and bright. Angela wanted to host this year. You shouldn't have to do anything, she said. Just rest. Just come and be loved. It was the first time in years I didn't cook a thing for the holiday. No pies. No cranberry sauce. No roast. It felt strange, not unwelcome, just different. Like stepping into a life that used to be yours, but no longer fits quite right. When I arrived, Noah met me at the door in a red sweater with a reindeer on the front. Grandma, he shouted, nearly knocking the wind out of me with his hug. I made you something. He dragged me into the living room. where a lopsided ornament made of popsicle sticks and glitter hung on the tree. "It's your heart," he said proudly. My own heart squeezed. Angela stood in the doorway, watching us. She didn't say anything, but I saw it in her face, something soft, something breaking, something healing. Dinner was loud and warm. We had too much food and too many jokes. I watched them, my family, and thought, this is enough. Even if this is my last Christmas, it's enough. After dinner, Angela sat beside me on the couch while Noah played with his new Lego set. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately," she said. "Good things, I hope." She smiled. "Mostly. I think about how much I took for granted. How often I let my own exhaustion make me blind to yours." I reached over and touched her hand. "We all do that," I said. "We look at people through the lens of what we need. It's not always selfish. Sometimes it's just survival." Angela was quiet for a while. "Do you wish you'd done anything differently?" she finally asked. I took a moment before answering. "Yes, but not because I regret who you became. Just because I sometimes wonder who I could have been if I'd given myself more room." She looked at me, eyes wet. "I want to be better for Noah," she whispered. "I don't want him to grow up and feel like I only saw him as something to manage." "You're already better," I said. "The fact that you're even asking that question? That's the beginning." We sat together in the dark, the only light coming from the tree and the flickering candles on the mantel. It was the first Christmas in years that felt like home. In January, I started feeling weaker. Not dramatically, just small things. A little more tired after walking. A little less hungry. A little more forgetful. I didn't tell Angela at first. She had just started a new remote job, finally something stable and less chaotic. She was trying to be more present for Noah. I didn't want to be the storm cloud again. But the body tells the truth, eventually. One morning, I collapsed in the bathroom. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't lose consciousness. I didn't call for help. I just sat there, on the cold tile floor, dizzy and embarrassed and very, very aware of how fragile I'd become. I stayed there for nearly 20 minutes before pulling myself up, inch by inch, using the sink and the counter like crutches. That afternoon, I called Angela. "I think it's time we talked about what comes next." Hospice wasn't a word I ever imagined associating with myself. But the nurse was kind, and the social worker even kinder. They talked about comfort, about dignity, about control. It wasn't about giving up. It was about choosing how I wanted to spend the days that remained. Angela cried, of course, but she didn't fight me on it. Not anymore. I think, somewhere deep down, she knew this day would come. We set up the bed in my apartment. The nurse came 3 times a week. Angela came every day. Noah came after school, bringing drawings and giggles and all the life my small room could hold. We read books together. We watched old movies. We told stories. One night, Noah asked, "Are you going to heaven soon?" I swallowed hard. "Maybe," I said, "but not tonight. Can I come with you?" I pulled him close. "No, baby. Not for a long, long time." He thought about that, then nodded. "Okay, but I want to come one day." "You will," I said, "when you're very, very old, and you've had a big, wonderful life." He kissed my cheek. "Then I hope they have Legos in heaven." Angela began sleeping over on weekends. She made coffee in the mornings and read aloud to me from the paper, even the boring parts. She sang to me sometimes, off-key and unashamed. We talked about things we'd never said before. "I was angry at you for a long time," she confessed one night. "After Dad died." "I know. You were so quiet. So locked up. I didn't know how to reach you." "I didn't know how to be reached," I said. "I didn't want to shatter." Angela wiped her eyes. "I always thought you were so strong." I was. But strength doesn't mean I wasn't hurting. She nodded, and then she said something I would carry with me forever. "I see you now, Mama. All of you. Not just the parts that served me. And I love you more for it." In late February, I asked Angela to bring me outside one last time. It was cold, but the sky was clear and blue, and I wanted to feel the air on my face. She wrapped me in 2 blankets and wheeled me onto the porch. We sat in silence for a long while. Noah drew with sidewalk chalk at our feet hearts, suns, stars, a giant smiling face with wild yellow hair. Angela held my hand. "If I could keep you here forever, I would," she said. I looked out at the street. The trees were bare, the wind sharp, but it was still beautiful. "I know," I said, "but I'm not meant to stay forever. None of us are." She wiped her cheek. "I'm going to miss you." "I'll miss you too," I whispered. but I'll never be far. She rested her head against my shoulder, and we sat there like that, 3 generations stitched together by love, grief, and everything in between. And in that moment, I knew. Even if I wasn't here tomorrow, I had already done something lasting. I had helped raise a woman brave enough to see me, and a boy tender enough to remember. The final weeks came quietly. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no sudden hospital trips. Just a slow fading like lights slipping from a room when no one's watching. Angela took a leave from work. She moved into the guest room with a suitcase full of sweats and her old college hoodie. She brewed tea I couldn't drink and played music I barely heard. But she was there. That was all that mattered. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. She'd sit beside me and read Noah's drawings, old letters, notes I had written in the margins of library books. Once, she pulled out a stack of unsent postcards from a drawer. I used to collect these, I said, tracing the edges with my fingers. Places I dreamed of visiting. Didn't have the money back then. Angela flipped through them slowly. Paris, New York, Sedona. Which one would you have gone to first? I smiled. New Orleans. Jazz and bread pudding. I always wanted to dance in a street parade. Angela laughed, but there was sorrow in her voice. We should have gone. We did what we could, I said. We found our own parades. One evening, I woke up around 3 a.m. and found Angela asleep in the chair next to my bed, head tilted back, mouth slightly open, one hand still holding mine. I studied her face, so much of it mine, and yet entirely her own. The worry lines, the softness of her jaw. She looked like a woman who had fought long and hard to love better. And she had. I reached over and gently squeezed her hand. She stirred. Mama, I'm still here. She leaned forward, forehead against my arm. I don't want to let you go. You don't have to, I said. Just let me change shape. The next morning, I asked her to record my voice. For Noah, I said. One day, he'll want to hear me again. Angela set up her phone and held it steady with trembling hands. What should I say? I asked. Whatever you want him to remember. So I spoke. Hi, sweetheart. It's Grandma. If you're hearing this, it means I'm not there to hold your hand anymore. But I want you to know, I loved you from the second I met you. You made my days brighter and my heart fuller. I hope you're being kind. I hope you're being brave. And I hope you're still drawing dinosaurs. Every time you see the moon, think of me. I'll be thinking of you too. Now go. Be wonderful. Angela didn't speak for a long time after I finished. Then she kissed my forehead and whispered, Thank you. Noah visited one last time on a Sunday afternoon. He brought a picture of him and me, drawn in crayon. We had capes and crowns and giant cartoon eyes. I made us superheroes, he said. I took it with a shaking hand. That's perfect. Angela knelt beside the bed. Do you want to say anything to Grandma? Noah thought for a moment, then whispered, I love you more than cookies. It was the highest compliment he could offer. And I love you more than the ocean, I said. That's pretty big, don't you think? He nodded. Angela let him out gently. He looked back once, then ran into her arms. I watched them go. That was the last time I saw my grandson. That night, the pain deepened. I knew it wouldn't be long. My body was loosening its grip, the tether fraying thread by thread. Angela sat beside me, her head on my shoulder, humming something soft and familiar, the same lullaby I used to sing to her as a baby. You remember it, I whispered. She smiled through tears. Every word. I'm proud of you, Angela. I'm proud of you. I wasn't perfect. Neither was I. We laughed, just a little, and then we cried together, without shame. She kissed my cheek and rested her hand on my chest. I'll be okay, Mama. I promise. I believed her. And that's when I let go. The funeral was small, just as I'd asked. No huge church. No elaborate eulogy. Just music, some photos, a few tears, and a lot of laughter. I had told Angela, if no one laughs at least once, I'll haunt you. She kept her promise. Noah placed a shell in the urn. So Grandma always has the ocean, he said. Angela spoke briefly. My mother taught me how to fight for what matters, she said. And she taught me how to forgive her and myself. I didn't always see her clearly, but I do now. She was everything I want to be, and more. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. After the service, Angela took Noah to the beach. They walked barefoot in the sand, carrying a small jar of my ashes. When they reached the water, Angela knelt down beside him. Want to say anything? She asked. Noah looked up at the sky. Bye, Grandma. I hope you're dancing in your parade. Angela smiled, opened the jar, and let the wind carry me home. 6 months later, Angela sat alone in my apartment. She hadn't rented it out. Not yet. She came sometimes just to sit in my old chair, listen to my records, smell the lavender sachets in my drawer. She opened my red binder, the one with all my paperwork, and found the envelope I'd tucked inside the one marked, "When you're ready." She opened it with careful fingers. Inside was a letter. "Angela, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Or mostly gone. I like to think I'm still around in the wind, in your laugh, in the way you stir your tea twice before drinking it. I hope you remember that you are enough even on your worst days. You were never a burden. Not even once. Love your boy the way you wanted to be loved. And when you feel lost, look for the moon. I'll be there. Always. Mom." Angela pressed the letter to her heart. Then she stood up, opened the window, and let the spring air rush in. The world was still turning. The light still falling. And she, daughter, mother, woman, was still standing. 1 year later, Noah started first grade. He wore a backpack 3 sizes too big and carried a picture of me in his front pocket. On Family Day, the teacher asked the students to draw someone they loved who had passed away. Noah drew me cape, crown, crayon smile. "She was my grandma," he said. "She was brave. She didn't babysit me once 'cause she had to go to the doctor. I got mad, but now I think that was cool. She was taking care of herself." The teacher smiled. "She sounds very wise." Noah nodded. "She is. She lives on the moon now. And maybe I do. Or maybe I live in every choice Angela makes to rest when she's tired. In every no she says without guilt. In every yes she offers freely. Maybe I live in the way she lets Noah cry, laugh, and grow without needing to be perfect. Maybe I live in the legacy of not being everything to everyone, but being fully myself. Selfish, they once called me. But maybe selfish was just the beginning of freedom.